Yuya is a fat scum who gets bullied by his family for being ugly. However, everything changes when he stumbles upon a hidden door that transports him to a world where he gains cheat skills that turn him into a harem boss. It all begins with fat ugly Yuya reflecting on how ever since he was young he was treated badly, because it was aesthetically blasphemous. However, even when he felt like he was not welcomed by this shitty world, Yuya felt like he was lucky to be born, since there would probably come a moment where he would get to help a hot baddie who would then fall for his nice guy personality. Well, turns out today is the day when Yuya would get to shine as he stumbles in a dark alleyway where he sees a group of very bad men harassing a girl. Without a second thought in his fat head, Yuya nervously confronts the group of rebels to let the girl go. As the men shift their attention to Yuya, they instantly start to laugh and mock him. After telling Yuya that he is built like a boy who touches himself to cookbooks, they start beating him like he is some fat piggy. The hoodlums beat Yuya until they hear police cars in the distance, which causes them to flee. The girl named Kaori tries to help Yuya, but by now, he is so defeated by the beating that he shrugs off Kaori and heads home. While walking, Yuya thinks about his dumb grandfather who advised him to always remain kind to others, as it takes courage to be a good man. In the present, Yuya thinks about how he knows he is built like a donut diddler, which is why his classmates, parents, and siblings never treated him like he was a human being. Unfortunately, as he grew up, the violence towards him only worsened. After entering his empty cold house, Yuya thinks about how his dead grandfather was the only one who would treat him like he is a person worthy of love. He would also counsel him to stay strong in the face of difficulties and treat his enemies with kindness, as that is the key to happiness. Of course, Yuya realizes now how the old man's advice was dog, but he also acknowledges how his grandfather loved him. After his passing, Yuya was made the sole inheritor of his grandfather's house and a few possessions, which of course pissed off his parents who wanted Yuya to live in a fat camp. Fortunately, Yuya's grandfather hired Harvey Specter, who made sure Yuya would not become homeless after he died. As a result of this, Yuya's parents left him entirely to rot. Now on his own, Yuya makes a living by cleaning stains in a Taco Bell restaurant. The next day happens to be Yuya's graduation day, but of course he ends up getting beaten by a bunch of bullies. After eating some fists and kicks, which luckily cost no calories, Yuya returns to his job where he gets berated by his boss. Yuya tries to apologize, but his boss tells him to piss off as he has already found a Chad to do his work. After returning home, Yuya confronts his worst enemy, aka his own reflection. Seeing how he looks worse than a baboon's red butt, Yuya becomes so frustrated that he starts to smash the mirror. However, in doing so, Yuya ends up stumbling over a secret passage. At first, Yuya wonders if he has come inside his grandfather's kinky room, but upon taking a closer look, he finds weird objects all across the room. He then recalls how his grandfather used to travel the world and bring him strange presents. As Yuya explores further, he comes upon another door inside the secret room. Suddenly, a menu pops up, informing Yuya that he's now in another world. After getting over his initial shock, he studies the menu further, realizing that only he can use the portal to this other world. Noticing various titles featured on the menu, Yuya realizes it all feels a lot like a game. His theory is instantly proven correct as his status window pops up, showing that all his stats are at a solid one. As Yuya explores these unfamiliar surroundings, he comes to terms with the reality that he's actually been transported to another world. His curiosity soon leads him to discover a letter resting on a table, but he's unable to understand it. Fortunately, the system grants him a language comprehension skill, allowing him to read the message. The letter reveals that the house he's in once belonged to a sage, and upon the sage's passing, the house was destined to pass to the next person who stumbled across it. Now understanding he's the new owner, Yuya checks out his surroundings further and discovers a pile of weapons. He grabs his sword, but quickly realizes this isn't a mozzarella stick, and he actually needs to be careful. Initially hesitant, Yuya soon becomes eager to try out the weapons. Unfortunately, his playtime is interrupted by a bloody ogre trying to break the protective barrier. Despite knowing the monster can't harm him, Yuya decides to man up and confront the ogre, aiming a spear at it. With that one shot, he eliminates the bloody ogre, and the system rewards him for not pissing his pants by giving him some cash. The next morning, Yuya wakes up with abs of steel, like he's been doing planks since he was in his mother's womb. Feeling his newly flattened stomach, Yuya concludes that he must have lost weight after that massive hot dump he took the previous night. Without bothering to check his appearance in detail, he heads into the fantasy world, deciding to take care of the sage's plants because hoeing is the way of life. After spending weeks in his otherworldly house, Yuya heads back to the real world for his first day of high school. As he enters the school premises, everyone starts whispering and gawking at him like he is Henry Cavill. Once in class, his bullies approach him, asking if he's some transfer student. Nervous, Yuya reminds them that he's the same croissant crusader they used to bully, but to his dismay they don't believe him. Weirded out, Yuya rushes to the bathroom and discovers he's now an average meth user. After stepping out of his class, Yuya finds himself confronted by his evil siblings, Yota and Sora. However, before they can have a conversation, Kaori steps out of her car and tells Yuya that his transformation is more amazing than Nikocado Avocado. Yuya looks at Kaori, unable to identify her until Kaori notices his confusion and explains she is the same damsel his fat self tried to save back then. As the memories of the previous day return to Yuya, he asks Kaori how she knows his name. Kaori, secretly being an obsessed stalker, tells Yuya that she wanted to thank him for his bravado, so he had him investigated. With that, Kaori asks Yuya if he would like to attend Aussie Academy. Yuya and his siblings' jaws drop as they hear the name of Aussie Academy. It turns out, Aussie Academy is a super elite school for brats. Noticing Yuya's surprise, Kaori introduces herself and reveals that she is a member of the student council. All of a sudden, Kaori's genderbender Sebastian tells the gang that Kaori is technically a rich brat, as her father Tsukasa is the chairman of the Aussie Academy board. She also states that when Tsukasa heard how he saved his daughter, he personally wanted to extend his gratitude to him. After hearing everything, Yuya, being a pathetic loser, tells Kaori that he lacks the charisma required to be a student at such a prestigious academy. Suddenly, Sora and Yota interject by telling Kaori that she should let them enroll in Aussie Academy as they knew daily. But of course, Kaori instantly refuses them since she is a stuck-up brat who only wants Yuya. She also states that she had them investigated as well and knows all about their wrongdoings, which is why they will never get an admission at her daddy's school. Kaori turns to Yuya again and assures him that Aussie Academy welcomes students with exceptional character, which is why he should not worry. Kaori's butler finally has enough of this boring conversation, and she tells Kaori that she should just show Yuya how cool Aussie Academy really is. Kaori accepts the suggestion and throws Yuya in her car, while his siblings are left feeling like NPCs. Arriving at Aussie Academy, Yuya is escorted to the chairman's office, where Kaori's father greets him with a humble bow and heartfelt gratitude for saving his daughter. Feeling overwhelmed by the kindness, Yuya quickly tries to downplay his actions, but Kaori insists that while everyone else turned a blind eye, Yuya was the only one who took action. Tsukasa commends Yuya for having hunter eyes and a good character, and then follows up by offering him a place at Aussie Academy. He adds that since he saved his daughter, he does not have to worry about getting student loans. Hesitant, Yuya asks if someone like him, a self-proclaimed loser, could really fit in at a prestigious academy for geniuses. Understanding his concerns, Tsukasa reassures him that a genius is simply someone who finds the most efficient way to complete a task, and with the right guidance, anyone can achieve such talent. Hearing these wise words, Yuya is reminded of his late grandfather. The chairman then suggests that Yuya observe the academy for a day to see if it's a good fit. At that moment, Miss Ri enters the office, eagerly stating that she would love to teach a 6-foot Chad like Yuya. Tsukasa assures a surprised Yuya that while Miss Ri might look like she's out in the open and believes in drinking almond milk, she is in fact a renowned scientist and loved by the students. Pushing down his insecurities, Yuya steps into Miss Ri's classroom and instantly becomes the center of attention. However, as a former person of calorie, Yuya becomes nervous under the spotlight. Miss Ri quickly steps in, telling the eager onlookers to wipe their drool, and directs Yuya to take the protagonist's seat at the last seat by the window. After class, Yuya finds himself overwhelmed by his classmates' barrage of questions. Feeling suffocated by all the attention, he realizes that beauty privilege can truly be a curse at times. Luckily, a side character named Ryo comes to his rescue, inviting him to join him and his friend Shingo for lunch. Over a heartfelt meal, Yuya begins to feel a sense of belonging, surrounded by friends who accept him for who he is. Encouraged by the experience, Yuya later expresses his desire to Tsukasa to join the academy. Afterward, Yuya shares a pleasant time with Kaori at a local cafe, marking their growing friendship. However, as the day ends, Yuya returns to the other world. For the first time, he leaves the safety of the sage's house and ventures into the eerie forest. Before long, Yuya encounters a ferocious monster attacking a female woman. Wasting no time, Yuya jumps in to confront the beast, ultimately saving the girl from danger. Moments later, Yuya finds the area surrounded by a bunch of knights. Knowing he is a pretty boy now, Yuya decides to flee the scene before he gets oiled up by the group of men. As he returns back home, Yuya looks at his clothes and realizes that he does not have all that many clothes. And since he has coaching now, he decides to head to a mall to get some new clothes. As his current shirt is an item he acquired from the other world, Yuya notes from the status bar how his shirt never gets dirty, but even then, he does not want to be looking like Elon Musk every damn day. So he makes up his mind to get some designer clothes. Once his mindless ramblings are done with, Yuya looks up and finds men and women looking at him as if he is Chico. However, since he spent most of his years getting beaten like a pinata for being obese, Yuya wonders if they are all looking at him because he looks like a used piece of chewing gum. Somewhere else, a fruity-looking man yells at a terrified man about how he hates slackers like Shu, the rising model. The man named Hikaru grows more upset as the clock continues to tick, and he continues to get more late for his shoot, which is themed "My Hot Boyfriend and Me." Hikaru turns towards Miu and expresses his apology for taking too much of her time. Maya, on the other hand, assures the director that he need not worry. However, Hikaru's patience wears thin as he announces to his staff that he is done waiting around for Shu and will now just replace him with a rando man from the mall. In the meantime, Yuya finds himself feeling like a lost boyfriend in a Sephora shop. Unable to understand which outfit he should get, Yuya is then approached by two thirsty women who ask Yuya if he is available to hang out with them. After a minute of hesitation, Yuya firmly but politely turns the girls down. However, one look at his luscious eyebrows and the girls are instantly starstruck. Yuya leaves the two girls who decide to make Patrick Bateman edits on Yuya once they reach home. Meanwhile, Hikaru initiates his search for a model when he suddenly spots Yuya and instantly hires him. Once the shoot begins, Hikaru is captivated by Yuya's stunning looks. Observing Yuya's discomfort, Miu attempts to help him relax by engaging in some light conversation. She asks if this is his first time at a photo shoot, which only heightens Yuya's nervousness as he feels Miu is standing a bit too close. Oblivious to his discomfort, Miu thanks him for saving the day, explaining how everyone had a packed schedule. Yuya becomes more uneasy when he accidentally notices Miu's figure, but quickly shifts his focus to admire her professionalism instead. Meanwhile, in the other world, the girl Yuya saved regains consciousness and recalls his face. She leaves her room in a hurry, much to the guard's dismay. Turns out this girl happens to be Princess Lexia von Alsyria, and now she is determined to meet her savior. Without beating around the bush, Lexia insists on heading into the Great Demon territory, ignoring her guard's objections. After finishing the shoot with Miu, Yuya compliments her professionalism. Miu laughs, sharing how nervous she once was when she started out. Feeling more comfortable with her, Yuya opens up about his own life, explaining how modeling was never his main focus until recently. He admits that he once viewed modeling as an easy job, but now he respects it as a demanding career. Curious about Miu's reasons for becoming a model, Yuya asks her about her motivations. Miu opens up, saying that her neglectful parents drove her to seek validation from the world. She jokes about having a large number of admirers willing to do anything for her. Turning the conversation back to Yuya, Miu advises him to enjoy the present of beauty while he's young. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Shu, who was originally meant to be part of the photo shoot. Shu's demeanor toward Miu quickly turns hostile, prompting Yuya to intervene. Demonstrating surprising strength, Yuya subdues Shu, impressing everyone present. The director, grateful for Yuya's intervention, rewards him with branded clothing. After saying goodbye to Miu, Yuya notices her blushing as she recalls their time together. Later, Yuya returns to the other world, where he once again saves Princess Lexia and her troops from a group of ogres. In gratitude for saving her life, Lexia surprises Yuya by proposing marriage. Hearing the princess propose to a complete stranger, Lexia's retainer, Owen, completely loses his composure, reminding the princess of her royal station. But Lexia, utterly blinded by Yuya's sharp jawline, disregards Owen entirely and declares her love for the man who saved her life. Owen cringes even further, arguing against her sudden marriage decision, but Lexia just tells Owen that an old boomer like him has no business interfering in her love life. Seeing the princess and her retainer quarrel, Yuya awkwardly suggests that they head back to his place. Owen, shocked by this proposal, is left thinking that perhaps he misjudged Yuya since he is not some imbecile without manners. Upon arriving at his otherworldly home, Yuya receives a formal introduction to Lexia. Owen reveals that, despite looking like a succubus in ovulation, Lexia is actually the royal princess of Alcyria. Realizing this, Yuya nervously asks if he needs to use any proper formalities when speaking to her. But since the princess has already thoroughly disgraced herself, Owen assures Yuya that there's no need, as their visit is entirely unofficial anyway. With that said, Owen requests an introduction from Yuya, and as Yuya obliges, Owen notes that the name Yuya Tenju doesn't sound like any name he's ever heard in Alcyria. Lexia leans in close to Owen, whispering excitedly that maybe Yuya is some handsome noble from another country. But Owen bluntly tells her to calm her ovaries and stop fantasizing about dating a hot Italian mafia. Lexia, of course, ignores this advice and goes on to say that perhaps Yuya is royalty himself. Owen sighs in utter defeat, wondering if Yuya could be an agent from another country, sent here to raise up the princess. Shaking off his doubts, Owen turns to Yuya to deliver a crucial message about how they've been looking for him. Confused, Yuya asks why, and Owen explains that just a few days ago, Lexia told him about how she was saved in the Great Demon territory by a handsome hero, and because of his bravery, they wanted to express their gratitude personally. Lexia then butts into the conversation, revealing that her heart and her cave of wonder have been craving only for him since that moment he saved her. Steadily inching closer to him, Lexia suddenly pins Yuya against the wall, desperately asking him to marry her. Perceiving this proposal as an absolute curse, Yuya nervously reminds the princess that she originally came here just to thank him. Gathering his thoughts, Yuya politely but anxiously explains that her proposal came out of nowhere, and he's unsure how to respond. Completely misinterpreting Yuya's words, Lexia declares that if Yuya means that love is no simple thing for him, then she's willing to face all trials and tribulations to earn his affection. She then asks if they could at least start as friends, but as Yuya hears the word friend, his mind flashes back to the torment he endured at the hands of so-called friends during his school days. Pushing aside the painful memories, Yuya graciously accepts Lexia's offer to start as friends. Lexia bids Yuya farewell, promising to woo him during their next meeting, while Yuya recalls Owen's invitation to the royal palace, explaining that the king himself wishes to meet him. Owen also mentions that the journey to Alcyria would take 5 days, but since Yuya has other priorities in the real world, Shu's demeanor toward Miu quickly turns hostile, prompting Yuya to intervene. Demonstrating surprising strength, Yuya subdues Shu, impressing everyone present. The director, grateful for Yuya's intervention, lied to Miu. Yuya notices her blushing as she recalls their time together. Later, Yuya returns to the other world, where he once again saves Princess Lexia and her troops from a group of ogres. In gratitude for saving her life, Lexia surprises Yuya's marriage. Hearing the princess propose to a complete stranger, Lexia's retainer, Owen, completely loses his composure, reminding the princess of her royal station. But Lexia, utterly Yuya's sharp jawline, disregards Owen entirely and declares her love for the man who saved her life. Owen cringes even further, arguing. During PE class, Yuya observes his classmates participating in an intense soccer match from afar. Just then, a girl named Kate approaches and strikes up a conversation with him. Suddenly, a soccer ball comes flying toward them, and Yuya instinctively displays his impressive strength by kicking the ball away with ease, earning everyone's admiration. The student responsible for the errant soccer ball runs over to apologize, introducing himself as Akira Ichinos. He also mentions that he's known as the Prince of Osai Academy, but his classmates instantly call him out on his delusions, leaving Akira visibly flustered. Yuya and Cade instantly burst into laughter, seeing the blondie get humbled by everyone. Unfortunately, their peace is soon shattered by a delinquent group known as the Red Ogre. Kaori notices with shock that the twins, Sora and Yota, are also among the gang members. The twins reveal their vengeful intentions towards her and give the signal to the gangsters to execute their plan of kidnapping Kaori. Mustering his courage, Yuya steps up to confront one of his own middle school bullies, Araki, who happens to be part of the Red Ogre gang. As Yuya gains the upper hand in the confrontation, the leader of the gang turns his aggression toward the twins. Yuya intervenes without hesitation, putting himself at risk to save them. Seeing Yuya's selfless act, the twins begin to reflect on their own past actions and the way they had treated their elder brother. Stepping out of his otherworldly home, Yuya recalls Owen's warning about the Great Demon Territory, notorious for its danger and deadly monsters. This makes Yuya wonder about the sage who had once lived alone in the forest before him. Saving his thoughts for Dear Diary, Yuya ventures deeper into the forest, hoping to find a worthy challenge. But as he grows disappointed by the lack of formidable opponents, he prepares to leave until a noise from a dense area catches his attention. Activating his invisibility skill, Yuya sees a powerful monster attacking a defenseless cub. Despite knowing that he's outmatched by the king orc, Yuya's compassion drives him to intervene. Remembering his grandfather's teachings about always helping those in need, Yuya charges at the king orc, determined to protect the cub. Thanks to the powerful weapons at his disposal, he effortlessly defeats the monster. This experience makes Yuya realize just how strong and skilled the sage must have been to craft such weapons. Yuya then turns his attention to the injured cub, nervously offering it a healing juice and assuring it that it will help restore its strength. Unfortunately, the cub faints from the injuries it received from Lizzo's pet. Acting quickly, Yuya uses his magic to heal the cub, who gratefully licks his hand in thanks. Smiling, Yuya asks the cub about its parents, but the cub responds somberly, indicating that it has none. Understanding the cub's suffering and knowing the pain of being a parentless loser himself, Yuya offers to take the cub home, where it will be safe and well cared for. The cub's spirits instantly lift, and it barks in agreement. Pleased with the cub's enthusiasm, Yuya checks its stats and discovers that the cub is actually a black fenrir with impressive attributes. Realizing the cub doesn't have a name, Yuya decides to name him Knight, inspired by the cub's jet black fur. After returning to the real world, Yuya asks his classmates if they know of any pet stores while revealing that he recently adopted a pup. This excites Cade, who curiously asks to see a picture of the dog. But as she leans in close, Yuya becomes nervous and shy. Seeing how close she is, Cade quickly apologizes and backs away. Yuya then admits that he doesn't have a smartphone, as he was a friendless loser until recently. Eager to help him out, Cade volunteers to take Yuya to a pet store. Later that day, Yuya returns home and greets Knight, telling him how he and his friend picked out a collar for him. Knight responds with an enthusiastic bark, prompting Yuya to take him for a walk. With his recent glow-up, the world becomes like his personal runway, as onlookers stare and admire his beauty. During their stroll, Yuya encounters Kaori, who eagerly pets Knight. Meanwhile, people around them begin tweaking out at the sight of a hot guy, an equally attractive girl, and a cute dog altogether. Kaori remarks that Knight seems happy under Yuya's care, which makes him smile. Their conversation, however, is interrupted when Mi shows up, revealing that she lives in the area. Yuya politely introduces Miu to Kaori before bidding the model goodbye, assuring her that he plans to continue walking Knight in her neighborhood. Of course, seeing Yuya with a woman who might just be hotter than her, Kaori becomes apprehensive and asks if he's dating Miu. Not wanting to risk his scholarship, Yuya quickly assures Kaori that he has only met Miu once. Suddenly, a woman screams as a thief snatches her belongings. Seeing the chaos unfold, Yuya immediately commands Knight to chase down the thief while he rushes to console the old woman. Within moments, Knight swiftly apprehends the snatcher and brings him back to Yuya, who quickly instructs Kaori to call the police. Enraged, the thief attempts to harm Kaori, but before he can do so, Yuya intervenes and takes him down, ensuring everyone's safety. Later, Yuya and Knight return to the other world, where they encounter a powerful deer monster in the forest. Working together, they defeat the creature and come out victorious. As a reward for their bravery, they receive a portable bath, so that his stench alone does not eliminate the monsters. Later on, Yuya becomes intrigued by the forest's secrets, prompting him and Knight to venture further until they come across a hidden cave. To Yuya's amazement, he finds the Book of Sage lying next to a skeleton within the cave. Opening the book, Yuya is very surprised to find out that the author is actually the previous owner of his current home, the legendary sage himself. Filled with curiosity and excitement, Yuya starts reading the book to learn more. He discovers that the sage had achieved mastery in almost every skill known to humans. These skills included fighting, magic, alchemy, crafting, and even more. Yuya finds himself greatly impressed by the sage, as he was a true master of everything. But what surprised him the most was how the sage had managed to reach the realm of gods while he was still alive, which was something that no ordinary person could ever imagine achieving. However, to Yuya's dismay, the sage reveals in the book that he declined the opportunity to become a god. The sage believed that the strength of a human comes from wanking till he is stricken by post-nut clarity, which is even greater than the power of a deity. As Yuya continues reading the book, he learns more about the sage's life. Even though the sage chose not to become a god, the consequences of this decision were not what he had hoped for. Instead of being admired, respected, and loved, the sage was feared by everyone. The people, instead of being grateful for his wisdom and power, were scared of him. They saw his incredible power as a threat, and as a result, the sage was shunned by everyone. He was rejected and isolated, and that made his life very lonely. To get away from the judgmental looks of other people, the sage chose to live alone in the Great Demon territory, as it was the only place where he could find comfort. Reading about the sage's loneliness makes Yuya feel a little sad, as he could understand what it was like to feel excluded. As Yuya reads further, the sage gives an important piece of advice to anyone who reads the book. He tells the reader to build trustworthy relationships and friendships that will give them support in times of need and prevent them from being isolated. However, this part of the book becomes a bit challenging for Yuya, as he has spent a large part of his life as an overweight, unpopular person, with no friends or loved ones. The thought of building strong relationships start to haunt Yuya, until he realizes he now has people that admire him at his new school. After finishing the book, Yuya notices something very interesting, a special note which states that the reader can ask the sage one question, and the sage will answer. Yuya gets excited about this unique opportunity and thinks about what to ask. Since he really wants to learn magic, he decides to ask how he can use magic. As soon as he asks, the sage communicates with Yuya using unseen magic, and Yuya feels a mysterious force connecting him with the sage's spirit. The sage tells Yuya that all of his knowledge about magic, his theories, research, and teachings are contained within the book that Yuya is holding. Feeling a little awkward and unsure about what else to say, Yuya simply thanks the skeletal figure and says no homo. The sage then shares an important detail with Yuya. Since Yuya comes from another world, he doesn't have the mana pathways that are necessary for using magic, which means that by nature, he cannot use magic at all. This revelation makes Yuya feel a bit disappointed, and he starts losing hope. But before Yuya can get too discouraged, the sage offers a solution. He reveals that he can grant Yuya his own mana pathways, and this will allow Yuya to use magic just like everyone else in this world. The sage explains that these mana pathways are rare and very powerful, and the sage is willing to pass them on to Yuya. Feeling excited and happy by this opportunity, Yuya gets ready to receive the mana pathways from the sage. As he receives the mana pathways, the ancient sage wishes Yuya well. He expresses his genuine wish for Yuya to live a happy and fulfilling life, which was something that the sage was unable to do. Yuya thanks the sage once more, and then the connection between them finally fades. After receiving the mana pathways, Yuya returns to his otherworldly home, feeling eager to learn even more. He quickly starts reading the book to understand more about magic and its possibilities. He learns that magic is, essentially, the realization of a person's imagination. Magic is the ability to turn thoughts and ideas into reality. However, he also learns that magic needs magical energy to work, as without enough magical energy, magic cannot be performed. Yuya then reaches the conclusion that the strength of magic depends on how strong a person's imagination is and how much magical energy they have. With all of this new information in his mind, Yuya is eager to try it out. He starts practicing, focusing his mind on the flow of mana. He gathers his newly acquired mana, and to his delight, he manages to unlock the skill of magic energy manipulation. As Yuya continues reading, he is surprised to discover that his companion Knight also received the sage's mana pathways, which means that Knight now has the potential to use magic as well. As Yuya reads more of the book, he learns something even more amazing, that he doesn't need to use incantations to cast magic spells. Instead, he can just use his imagination and his willpower to shape the mana, and without wasting further ado, he decides to go outside with Knight to test their new powers. Yuya stands in the open field and focuses his mind. He imagines a ball of water in his head, picturing it clearly, and then he uses his willpower to create it. To his amazement, a swirling sphere of water appears right in front of him, shimmering under the sunlight. Yuya is thrilled that his magic is working. He decides to see how powerful it is. He directs the water ball toward the nearby forest, flicking his wrist to send it forward. The water ball moves with incredible speed, smashing into the trees with great force. It causes widespread destruction, leaving Yuya both shocked and excited about how strong his magic really is. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Alsyria, King Arnold receives some unexpected news from Owen. The king learns that his beloved daughter, Princess Lexia, has proposed to Yulia, the hero who saved her life. This revelation makes King Arnold furious. He gets so mad that he starts losing his composure, accidentally wrecking parts of his own castle in his anger. As he stomps around in frustration, the king shouts about how his daughter is acting as if she has no father. Watching the king's temper tantrum, Owen takes cover in a corner. He starts questioning his life decisions and wondering why he ever chose to serve royalty in the first place. As for Yuya, after testing his magic, he returns to the real world. He finds out that he has been paired up with some of his classmates, Akira, Rin, and Cade, for the Academy's annual school trip. The school day finally comes to an end, and Yuya and his group mates are joined by Ryo, Shingo, and Kaori as they all decide to go to the mall for some shopping and fun. However, things take an unexpected and dangerous turn when a fire suddenly breaks out in one of the mall's stores. The fire spreads quickly, and soon the situation becomes chaotic. Determined to protect his friends and cuddle crew, Yuya decides to take action and use his newfound magic powers. Without wasting any time, he covers his body with a water shield, creating a protective shield around himself. Using that shield, Yuya takes Cade, Kaori, and Rin in his protective care. However, when he sees no way out of the burning building, Yuya decides to leap out of the 13th floor. But before making the leap, he calms his jittery stomach and then jumps to safety with all of his friends. Eager to delve deeper into the world of magic, Yuya begins to realize that magic is indeed his greatest ally. With this realization in mind, he decides to dedicate even more of his time and energy to practicing and honing his magical abilities. Within the quiet and peaceful environment of his otherworldly home, Yuya focuses on mastering the art of teleportation. Much to his surprise, after only a little practice and concentration, he manages to pull it off successfully. In the blink of an eye, he finds himself in the middle of the forest, just as he had envisioned. However, Yuya quickly comes to the conclusion that he can only teleport to places that he has previously seen, which means he won't be able to magically appear behind Kaori when she gets herself stuck in the washing machine. Later on, Yuya ventures deeper into the forest with his loyal companion, Knight. As they journey into the depths of the wilderness, they suddenly come across a group of goblins. Without hesitation, Yuya and Knight join forces to take down the goblins, before the goblins can diddle them. Together, they manage to defeat the monsters, and as a reward, they receive some valuable loot dropped by the goblins. Overjoyed by their victory, Yuya excitedly praises Knight for their improved coordination. After an eventful day of fighting goblins, Yuya mentions to Knight that he needs to prepare for his upcoming field trip. However, Knight seems uninterested in Yuya's words and takes off running, leaving Yuya no choice but to follow after him. Coming to a sudden halt, Knight begins to growl, staring into the distance with a wary expression, and then signals for Yuya to erase his presence and stay low. After a moment, Yuya spots what Knight had sensed, a mysterious girl surrounded by a horde of goblins. Not wanting his anime to turn into Goblin Slayer, Yuya prepares to jump in and protect the girl. However, Knight unexpectedly holds him back, as if telling Yuya to wait. Moments later, Yuya watches in awe as the girl begins to fight off the goblins on her own, showcasing her impressive combat skills. Yet, despite her efforts, it becomes clear that she is severely wounded. After dealing with some of the goblins, the girl eventually collapses from exhaustion and her injuries, leaving her defenseless. Seeing this, Yuya decides it's time to step in and save her from getting clapped by a gang of goblins. After fending off the remaining goblins, Yuya carefully picks up the unconscious girl in his arms and decides to take her back to his house, intending to care for her until she recovers. But just as he starts to walk, Knight growls in disagreement, clearly not on board with Yuya's plan. Yuya tries to reason with Knight. Before they can argue any further, the girl suddenly wakes up, startled by her surroundings. In her panic, the girl demands to be let down at once, and Yuya does exactly that and drops her, like the Sigma male that he is, causing the girl to yelp in pain. Realizing his mistake, Yuya quickly gives the girl some space, trying not to startle her further. Once she calms down, he offers her a healing potion, which she reluctantly accepts. After drinking the potion, her wounds begin to heal rapidly, much to her amazement. With her injuries taken care of, the girl introduces herself as Luna and explains that she had been training in the forest when she was attacked by the goblins. Yuya reassures her that the goblins have all been dealt with, which leaves Luna visibly surprised. As they talk, Luna mentions her desire for a warm bath, and without missing a beat, Yuya pulls out his portable bath, offering it to her so she can clean herself up. From outside the bath's privacy screen, Yuya informs her that he obtained this portable bath as a drop after defeating the crystal deer. Luna is visibly impressed, knowing that the crystal deer is one of the most formidable monsters in the Great Demon territory. And let's just say it makes her wetter than she already was. Recognizing Yuya's incredible strength, Luna pleads with him to assist her in her training, expressing her desire to become stronger. She quietly mumbles to herself about the need to improve so she can effectively carry out the orders given to her. At first, Yuya considers refusing her request, not wanting to get further involved. However, not wanting to lose his title of simp in shining armor, Yuya ultimately agrees to help Luna. This excites her so much that she steps out from behind the bath's veil in her birthday suit to thank him. Yuya, being a true man of God, quickly averts his gaze, trying his best to maintain his composure. And so, Luna's training with Yuya begins. Every day, the two of them venture deep into the forest to hunt down monsters together. Yuya takes note of Luna's abilities, and he finds that he has learned a great deal from her, strengthening both their teamwork and individual skills. The intense training sessions bring them closer as they push each other to improve. However, after a few days of training, Yuya informs Luna that he will no longer be able to assist her. Masking her disappointment, Luna accepts his decision gracefully, understanding that he has other responsibilities to tend to. Later that night, Luna decides to reward Yuya for his help by offering herself to him, but Yuya, embodying true Sigma energy, turns her down, telling her that he doesn't wish to be a father. The following day, Yuya returns to the real world in preparation for his school field trip. Upon arriving at the destination, Miss Reed gathers the student body and informs them that this field trip will be treated as a training session. She announces that they will be on their own, meaning everyone will need to fend for themselves and hunt for their own food. The students express concerns about their well-being, but Miss Reed reassures them that their health teacher, Miss Yamakala, will be available at all times in case of emergencies. With their teacher's instructions in mind, Yuya decides to take the initiative to hunt fish for his group. He sets out to find a suitable spot to catch some fish and uses his outdoor survival skills to make sure his teammates are well fed. Meanwhile, in the other world, Luna wears a stern expression on her face as she reflects on her recent experiences. She silently muses that if only she had met Yuya earlier in her life, perhaps she wouldn't have ended up living a corrupt life. However, she quickly dismisses these thoughts, reminding herself of her true nature as a member of the Dark Guild. She was born to be the feared assassin known as Headhunter, and there is no changing her past. Cade and Yuya return to their camp, where Cade excitedly shares with Rin that Yuya managed to catch all of the fish with his bare hands. Rin looks at Yuya with amazement, pointing out that being able to catch fish like that must mean his fingers move fast.
Yeah, boy.
Yuya finds himself enjoying his new life as a chick magnet, but soon his focus shifts to Akira on the ground, twerking like his life depends on it. Confused by what he is seeing, Yuya turns to Rin and asks her what happened while they were gone. Rin, clearly not interested, tells Yuya to just ignore Akira and not pay any attention to him. Akira, however, is very upset by Rin's dismissive attitude, and he calls her a meanie for making him work so hard. He then explains that Rin made him taste some mushrooms they found in the forest, even though they looked really suspicious. Yuya grows concerned as he quickly remembers how Miss Rai, their teacher, specifically warned everyone not to eat anything that looked unfamiliar or suspicious during the camping trip. When his anxiety reaches a boiling point, he ends up using his skills to check on Akira and makes sure he's okay. After a moment, Yuya sighs in relief when he finds out that Akira is still healthy and hasn't been affected by the mushrooms. Seeing how upset Akira is, Yuya stays to offer the fruity blonde some words of affirmation while Rin and Cade, who are natural gatherers, return to camp with a bunch of herbs. After having all that they need for dinner, Yuya asks his group who will be doing the cooking. Since none of them know how to cook, Rin, Cade, and Akira all awkwardly look away, seeing their reaction. Yuya sighs deeply, realizing he'll have to handle it himself. As they head to the main hall, Yuya notices Kaori and decides to walk over to greet her. They exchange greetings, chatting politely, but their conversation is interrupted when Akira comes over and starts watching in disbelief. He looks completely stunned to see Yuya talking to Kaori so easily. When Kaori finally says goodbye and leaves, Akira wastes no time and immediately starts questioning Yuya. He eagerly asks him how he knows Kaori, and why they seem so friendly. In a sad, envious tone, Akira admits that he has never gotten to be as close to Kaori as Yuya seems to be, even though he is the self-proclaimed prince of the school. The group then moves ahead to present the ingredients they gathered to Miss Rai. She takes a look at their haul and praises them for their hard work, saying that they did a great job. However, she also surprises them with a new announcement and tells them that their assessment will include a test of their cooking abilities. Determined to make sure they do well, Yuya decides to take charge of the situation. He steps up and takes responsibility for preparing the meal for his group and the teachers. When his friends and teachers finally get to taste his cooking, they all wonder if Yuya is Gordon Ramsay's. But since no one wants to go gigging secrets, they end up telling Yuya that he is so good at cooking that he could be the one calling Gordon Ramsay a donkey. This also explains why Yuya was built like Avatar the Last Stackbender. As everyone continues enjoying the meal Yuya has prepared, things suddenly take an unexpected turn when Miss Rai, clearly impressed by Yuya's cooking skills and his youthful good looks, proposes to Yuya on the spot. She admits that she may not be the best cook or cleaner, but she can get him good grades if he were to use his good looks on her. Everyone sitting at the table, both the students and the teachers, are left speechless by Miss Rai's sudden bold declaration. The other teachers are quick to remind her that if she keeps this up, she could be labeled as a student toucher. Yuya, though flattered by the attention, politely declines her proposal as he does not want to ruin his entire life over a MILF. But Miss Rai isn't ready to give up just yet. She tries to make one last desperate attempt to get Yuya's attention by shoving his face into her chest, hoping to impress Yuya with her great personality. Despite living a fantasy that you losers can only dream about, Yuya becomes rather uncomfortable by his teacher's behavior. Later that night, Yuya goes into the communal shower area and becomes a sight for sore eyes with his lean, well-defined muscles, all the mouth brothers in the boys' bathroom. Things get intense in the girls' bathroom when Rin decides to make an attack on Cade's large chest, teasing her about her well-endowed figure. However, as soon as Kaori enters the scene, Cade decides to tell her about the latest gossip and reveals how Miss Rai has been making moves on Yuya, trying to get close to him. Hearing this makes Kaori very worried as she starts to wonder if Yuya might not actually be into the whole flat is justice thing as she had hoped. The next morning, chaos erupts as all the students from Ozai Academy discover that their campsite has been completely ransacked. While everyone tries to wonder what attacked their campsite, Akira notices a giant footprint next to one of the torn tents. Despite the tense environment, the girls still suggest they go out and gather more ingredients for breakfast. But Yuya notices that something seems wrong with Akira as he seems unusually anxious. So without further ado, he decides to check on Akira to find out what's bothering him. Moments later, the reason for Akira's fear becomes obvious when a wild bear suddenly appears and starts wreaking havoc on even more campsites, causing everyone to panic and run in fear. During all the chaos, Miss Rai ends up in a dangerous situation as she trips and falls to the ground, and before she can get back up, she finds herself face to face with the wild bear. Instead of letting the bear mangle her PDF file teacher, Yuya rushes to her rescue immediately, and with one swift move, he manages to knock the bear out cold, saving his teacher from any harm. With the school trip finally over, Yuya starts preparing for a very important meeting with the king. But before he can attend that meeting, however, an unexpected turn of event occurs when Luna suddenly attacks Lexia. Reacting quickly, Knight jumps to Lexia's rescue, incapacitating Luna and saving the princess from harm. Using his invisibility skill, Yuya attacks a masked Luna, rendering her unconscious. Upon discovering that the orchestrator is Luna, he asks Lexia to allow him a moment alone with Luna. As Yuya teleports himself and Lexia from the darkest region of the Great Demon Territory back to his crappy house, the princess becomes rather curious and can't help but ask Yuya how he managed to bring them there so effortlessly. Yuya casually reveals that he's been working on a movement spell which prompts Lexia to let out a frustrated sigh. Her expression turns stern as she informs the simple fool that teleportation magic is a legendary class magic, something that belongs only in fairy tales. With that, Lexia warns Yuya that if word gets out about his abilities, it could cause widespread chaos and even spark wars as every nation would want him for themselves. Yuya quickly promises Lexia that he'll refrain from using such magic in public unless it's absolutely necessary. Lexia shifts her attention to Luna. Noticing her stillness, Lexia sternly orders Luna to stop pretending to be asleep. Hesitantly, Luna sits up as Lexia proudly states that her acting skills are as terrible as her assassination skills, since both she and Yuya had known she was faking it the whole time. Thinking she is the baddest in this whole realm, Lexia smugly asks Luna if she has anything to say about her actions. But the crappy assassin crudely asks the princess what she would gain by explaining herself. Lexia rolls her eyes and tells her she's just curious why someone like her is pretending to be an assassin when she clearly needs to take lessons from Koro-sensei. Luna coldly replies that if Lexia is so curious, they should just eliminate her and get it over with. Before Lexia can respond, Yuya interjects, stating that he too is curious about why Luna made an attempt on Lexia's life. With a bitter tone, Luna tells them that her life story isn't particularly interesting and begins to reveal how she grew up as an orphan in a cruel world, which is why in her early years she was forced to steal food until one day someone took her under his wing. This man taught her not only academic knowledge, but also the ways of an assassin. As Luna describes her master, Lexia's eyes widen in realization that Luna must belong to the infamous Dark Guild. Curious, Yuya asks what exactly the Dark Guild is. Lexia then explains that the Dark Guild is responsible for all the major crimes in their country, from theft and fraud to illegal drugs and assassinations. Luna continues, revealing that she became a professional assassin just like her master, and eventually earned the infamous title of headhunter. Shocked, Lexia asks if Luna is the same headhunter, who is notorious in the Alsyria kingdom. At the same time, Yuya realizes that his pet wolf knight had been wary of Luna from the start because he recognized her true identity. Unfazed by their reactions, Luna tells them that just a few days ago, she received an order to assassinate the first princess of Alsyria kingdom, which was why she attacked Lexia. After sharing her story, Luna requests that they grant her the mercy of death since the Dark Guild will hunt her down for failing, and she expects the kingdom will impose a death sentence for her attempted assassination. Annoyed by Luna's pessimistic outlook, Yuya snaps at her, declaring that he won't eliminate one of his own simps. Lexia joins in, stating that as punishment for her failed assassination attempt, Luna will now serve her for life as her bodyguard. Shocked by this proposition, Luna asks Lexia to clarify what she means. Lexia explains that since only she and Yuya know she was the culprit, there won't be any retaliation from her kingdom. However, ridden by guilt, Luna tries to refuse this opportunity, insisting that she deserves to die for her crimes. Fed up, Lexia tells Luna to eat it and obey her new master since she had failed in her mission. Seeing Lexia's confidence, Luna reluctantly accepts defeat. To celebrate the start of their new journey together, Lexia and Luna decide to bathe together using Yuya's portable bath. While they're alone, Lexia shamelessly asks Luna if she's in love with Yuya. Confused by her emotions, Luna struggles to answer, prompting Lexia to help her out by saying that if she isn't willing to fight for Yuya, then she will just go ahead and marry him. The words stir up jealousy in Luna, who now declares that Yuya belongs to her alone. Seeing Luna cast aside her submissive attitude, Lexia smirks and states that from now on, Luna is not only her guard but also her rival. The following day, Lexia, Luna, and Yuya regroup with Owen and his troops, but Lexia accidentally lets it slip that Luna was the one who tried to assassinate her. In an instant, Luna finds herself surrounded by soldiers with their swords drawn. Lexia giggles awkwardly and says she made an oopsie. Trying to calm the situation, Lexia tells Owen to stand down and trust her decision to appoint Luna as her new bodyguard. Owen, though reluctant, eventually complies and the soldiers lower their weapons. With the tension diffused, Yuya informs Owen that he can't accompany them to the palace right now, but promises to reschedule his meeting with the king. As Lexia and Luna prepare to leave, Luna surprises Yuya with a kiss, making Lexia visibly jealous. Left alone once again, Yuya and his wolf companion, Knight, come across a small creek and decide to wash up. Suddenly, Yuya notices a baby pig bathing nearby. Finding the little creature cute, Yuya decides to tame him and names him Akatsuki. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Yuya impresses his classmates by showcasing his superior football skills, earning admiration from everyone around him. The next day, Yuya displays his skills in ping pong, impressing everyone by showing how good he is with balls. After school, a member of the entertainment industry approaches him, eager to recruit him for show business. However, Yuya instantly declines the offer, leaving everyone around him surprised. His friends try to convince him to reconsider, pointing out that it could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he would even get the chance to meet some attractive women. However, despite their encouragement, Yuya remains firm. He states that at this point in his life, all he wants is to live as a regular high school student. Yuya's refusal disappoints the entertainment president Hikaru, who had been watching their conversation from a distance. Luckily, Mei steps in and asks the president not to pressure Yuya into anything since they do not want to have another Justin Bieber case in the industry. Yuya's friends, on the other hand, are left surprised as they watch a famous model casually interact with their dumb friend Yuya. Noticing the confused and shocked expressions of his friends, Yuya nervously tries to explain how he somehow ended up in the right place at the right time and accidentally landed himself in a photo shoot. Their conversation is cut short when Kaori comes running over to retrieve a pamphlet that has flown over to their group. The president picks up the pamphlet, which features information about Aosei Academy's ball tournament, and gets an idea that he could feature Yuya in showbiz without him needing to compromise his studies. Instead of giving much explanation to a puzzled Yuya, he drags her poor secretary along to the principal's office, with Miyu following closely behind. Later that night, Yuya, along with his pets Akatsuki and Knight, enters the other world where they find themselves in combat with skeletal monsters. After successfully defeating his enemies, Yuya decides to explore deeper into the forest. Trouble soon comes knocking as Yuya finds himself facing an enemy unlike any he has encountered before. In a desperate situation against the formidable mithril boar, Yuya makes a quick decision to shield his pets from the ferocious creature when suddenly a rabbit appears out of nowhere and takes down the boar with a single powerful kick, leaving Yuya in shock. As if that weren't enough, the rabbit greets Yuya and effortlessly deals with the boar's attempted counterattack. Nervously, Yuya expresses his gratitude to the mysterious kick rabbit, but the rabbit arrogantly orders Yuya and his companions to showcase their kicking abilities. Akatsuki steps up first, but is met with harsh criticism from the rabbit. Knight goes next and earns it a slightly better assessment. Finally, Yuya tries his luck and performs his kick, receiving a smile of approval from the rabbit, who acknowledges Yuya's talent. Without giving Yuya a moment to rest, the kick rabbit announces that they will begin a training session immediately, unleashing a series of rapid attacks on Yuya. After a long, grueling night of training, the kick rabbit finally reveals that he is a deity and has chosen Yuya to be his successor. Confused, Yuya asks for clarification and the kick rabbit explains that there are numerous deities in this world, and their sole purpose is to purify and rid the world of malice. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, Yuya asks if he can refuse to be the successor. The kick rabbit tries to guilt-trip Yuya, saying that he can refuse, but doing so would leave the world vulnerable, as they need more allies in the fight against evil. Ultimately, Yuya respectfully declines the offer but reassures the rabbit of his determination to become strong enough to protect those he cares about. The kick rabbit accepts Yuya's decision and tells him to gather his courage, as their training sessions will only get more intense from now on. Before they start their training again, the kick rabbit requests Yuya to teach him some magic so that he too can contribute to protecting the world from malice. Yuya agrees, and as part of their deal, the kick rabbit insists that Yuya must face the King Mithril Boar for revenge. Despite struggling at first, Yuya manages to defeat the powerful creature, surprising even himself. Later, the kick rabbit warns Yuya that the level of malice they will be facing is far more dangerous than anything he's encountered so far, and there's no way he can face it alone. However, thanks to their intense training, Yuya evolves into a stronger and more capable version of himself. Back in the real world, Yuya attends the ball tournament, where the president reminds him to look good since he's the star of the event. As the ping pong match begins, Yuya is greeted by his opponent, who looks like The Rock's cousin. Seeing the intimidating man on the court, the president's secretary informs that Yuya's opponent is known in the ping pong world as the Sniper. True to his name, the Sniper dominates the first round, but as the protagonist, Yuya manages to turn the tables and win without breaking a sweat. After dominating every game in the tournament, Yuya is approached by a worried-looking Kaori. Upon asking if she's okay, Yuya discovers that Kaori's partner for the badminton match has been injured. He agrees to step in as her partner for the upcoming game. Once the match starts, it quickly becomes evident to Yuya that Kaori's previous partner got injured because, well, Kaori is absolutely terrible at badminton. Sighing, Yuya takes on the challenge and carries the entire game, just as he has been carrying the whole show. Fortunately, his hard work pays off in the end, as Yuya receives a surprise kiss from Kaori as a reward. In her office, the president swoons over Yuya and reveals his plan to forcefully make him work for his company. Meanwhile, at his home, Yuya is getting tutored by Kaori. As Yuya thanks Kaori for helping him with math, Yuya then blurts out that he's good at languages thanks to his language comprehension skills, which leaves Kaori confused. Yuya quickly tries to cover it up by joking that he's just a little weird. A day before, Kaori and Yuya had been walking home together when Kaori informed him about their upcoming exams. Slightly worried, Yuya confessed that he's not very good with numbers, which makes sense given that he was unable to count his calories for most of his life. Kaori was surprised and remarked that she didn't expect Yuya to struggle with anything. Without hesitation, she offered to help him with basic math at his place. In the present, Kaori smiles triumphantly, thinking she has gained an advantage over Yuya's many admirers. As she politely excuses herself to use the bathroom, Yuya is left to reflect on how this is the first time a girl has been to his house. After a few minutes, Yuya starts to worry that Kaori might have gotten sick, so he goes to check on her, only to find her standing outside the gateway to the other world. Kaori quickly apologizes, explaining that she somehow felt drawn to enter the room. Nervously, Yuya tells her that the room is connected to another world. Yuya instructs Kaori to touch the door, revealing that only people he approves can enter the portal. Still confused, Kaori asks what he means by another world. Yuya then explains that the other world is different from Earth and contains magic, monsters, and powerful beings of evil. To provide proof, Yuya uses his magic to create a water ball. Surprisingly, Kaori takes it well, which prompts Yuya to invite her to visit the other world. When Kaori accepts the invitation, she is amazed by the sights of the alternate world. Suddenly, the status window appears, and Yuya explains the concept of status, revealing that everything in this world is measured in numbers. He admits that he used this world to transform himself from what he used to be, essentially cheating his way out of being unattractive. Instead of judging him, Kaori makes Yuya promise to show her around again next time. Meanwhile, at the palace, King Arnold inquires about Yuya's whereabouts from Aon when Luna interjects, admitting that Yuya couldn't come because she disrupted his schedule with an attack on Lexia. The furious king orders Luna's execution, but she quickly neutralizes him using her sharp strings. Lexia intervenes, urging her father to trust her decision, which results in King Arnold acknowledging Luna as Lexia's new bodyguard. Elsewhere, a masked man receives news that the notorious headhunter has become Lexia's bodyguard. Upon learning about the king's plans to invite a noble from the Great Demon territory, he decides it is time to strike at his father, the king. He instructs his cloaked assistant to deploy a magic sealing barrier that will render the king and his entourage defenseless. When asked about potential problems, the masked man reveals that he intends to shift the blame onto the noble from the dark regions if anything goes wrong. After getting a short break from school, Yuya heads to the royal capital to meet the king. On his way, he experiences a furry lover's dream, encountering people with fur and tails. He stops by a trader's shop and gives the merchant some Japanese spices, which fascinates the trader, who offers Yuya 100 gold coins for them. Upon arriving at the royal capital, Yuya is warmly welcomed by Owen. However, his audience with the king takes an awkward turn when King Arnold accuses him of seducing his daughter Lexia. Matters worsen when Yuya presents Lexia with a bed as a gift, enraging the king even more. Owen explains that in their country, gifting someone a bed is akin to a marriage proposal. Just as things escalate, a group of cloaked men storms into the castle, intent on attacking King Arnold and Lexia. Before they can carry out their plan, Yuya swiftly takes them down. With the palace facing a serious threat, Owen turns to Yuya and asks him to take care of Princess Lexia, ensuring her safety during the crisis. Unsure of what to do, Yuya looks at Lexia for guidance, but the princess responds cheerfully, expressing her intention of visiting the royal capital together with him. Luna, who is always clenching her butt just a little too hard, interjects, reminding Lexia that her life is currently in danger and this might not be the best time for sightseeing. The stubborn princess, however, dismisses Luna's concerns, insisting that since they all know the culprit is her older brother, she should be just fine. As Luna and Lexia begin competing for Yuya's attention, things start to get tense. That's when Owen gracefully steps in to defuse the situation. He offers to personally guide Yuya through the city, but the suggestion leaves Lexia visibly displeased, as she clearly wants Yuya's undivided attention. Observing Lexia's reaction, Owen eventually relents and comes up with a different approach. He suggests that he will maintain a respectful distance and keep watch over the area's security, while Luna will accompany Lexia to guarantee her safety. Unfortunately, Owen's revised plan goes south rather quickly, as onlookers begin praising Yuya for being accompanied by not one, but two beautiful women clinging to his side. Letting out a sigh, Yuya decides to take matters into his own hands, ensuring Lexia remains safe while dealing with the unwanted attention. A little later, Yuya, Lexia, and Luna stumble upon an adventurers guild, which immediately piques Yuya's interest. Noticing his curiosity, Luna suggests that they should both register as adventurers. Lexia, not wanting to be left out, gets visibly ticked off and reminds Luna that she is already employed as her bodyguard. Luna, however, smirks at Lexia, challenging her to register as well. As part of the registration process, Yuya is instructed by the receptionist to place his hand on a crystal ball to assess his magic power. To everyone's astonishment, the crystal shatters the moment Yuya makes contact with it, leaving the bystanders stunned. To add to the shock, the receptionist discovers that Yuya possesses the ability to wield all the elemental powers, something entirely unheard of. Feeling a bit overwhelmed by all the attention, Yuya lets out a sigh of relief, silently thanking his quick thinking for not writing down the full extent of his magical abilities, as that would have likely caused an even bigger commotion. After formally welcoming Yuya as a newly registered adventurer, Amelia, the receptionist informs him that he is free to select any job assignments of his choice. Just as Yuya is about to see his options, an adventurer named Grana shows up and immediately tries to get her cheeks by Yuya, making a bold pass at him. This does not sit well with Lexia and Luna, who furiously tell Grana to wait in line like everyone else. Yuya, feeling caught between the competing women, decides to focus on the task at hand. Later, Yuya and the girls toil hard as they search for medicinal herbs, but their efforts are soon interrupted when Owen comes rushing to inform Yuya that they have successfully identified Prince Rhaegar's location. Without hesitation, Yuya leaves with Owen, and as they prepare to depart, Owen instructs Luna to ensure that Lexia is safely escorted back to the palace. Meanwhile, Prince Rhaegar, now cornered and desperate, contemplates taking his own life to avoid facing the consequences of his actions. However, before he can do so, Yuya intervenes just in time to prevent Rhaegar from harming himself. Out of nowhere, a mysterious girl appears on the scene, asserting that Rhaegar has failed in his mission. Confused, Rhaegar attempts to communicate with her, reminding the mysterious girl that it was her plan all along to crown him as king. But to his shock, she reveals her true intention. She only intended to put him in power so she could initiate a war that would bring widespread destruction to humankind. After making her intentions clear, the mysterious girl declares her plan to annihilate humanity and makes an attempt to eliminate everyone present at the scene. However, Yuya steps in with swift action, successfully fending off her attacks and forcing her to make a temporary retreat. Upon returning to the castle, Owen informs Yuya that a meeting will be held to determine Prince Rhaegar's fate. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Yuya makes his way to the audience chamber, where he is confronted with the sight of Rhaegar's deformed body. As Lexia and King Arnold look away, unwilling to face Rhaegar's disfigured state, Rhaegar bitterly demands that they acknowledge the scars he sustained from Lexia's magical outburst. King Arnold steps in, urging Rhaegar to end his rant, pointing out that his wounds should have healed by now. However, Rhaegar reveals the true extent of his suffering. After being struck by Lexia's magic, his body was thrown into violent, uncontrollable fits, eventually breaking him to the point where he inflicted further torment upon himself. Turning to Lexia, Rhaegar vents his hatred towards her, blaming her for the pain that led to his isolation from everyone else. As Yuya listens to Rhaegar's pitiful story, he can't help but recall his own past days of torment, empathizing with the prince's suffering. Despite his pain, Rhaegar makes it clear that he doesn't want a redemption arc. Instead, he simply asks for death, but Yuya, unwilling to let him meet such an end, steps forward with a healing potion in hand. He uses it to heal Rhaegar's burned scars, determined to help him find peace. Even so, Rhaegar laughs bitterly, asserting that even if his physical wounds are healed, his death is inevitable. In that moment, Lexia speaks up and addresses her father, expressing her desire to extend forgiveness to Rhaegar for his attempt on her life. With his sins pardoned, Rhaegar expresses gratitude to both Lexia and Yuya for their kindness and for saving him from despair. The following day, Yuya is unexpectedly confronted by the mysterious girl who declares her intent to eliminate him. Meanwhile, Kaori, whose entire role seems to revolve around getting herself into trouble, enters the other world at the worst possible time, right when Yuya is facing one of his most dangerous enemies. Fortunately, the Kick Rabbit arrives just in time, standing up to the girl, who reveals her name is Yudi. He pleads with Yudi to abandon her path of vengeance, but she remains resolute, proclaiming that she will avenge her master, who was betrayed and slain by humans. After her dramatic declaration, Yudi unleashes her power of malice, threatening everyone present. Yet, just as the situation seems dire, Akatsuki intervenes, using his purity to overpower Yudi's negativity and subdue her. With Yudi now defeated, the Kick Rabbit jokingly suggests to Yuya that he should simply add her to his ever-growing harem, revealing that she can no longer use her evil powers. With the crisis averted, things gradually return to normalcy, and Kaori ends up befriending Yuya's various fangirls from the other world. As for Yuya, he continues to live his life as the Giga Chad protagonist he is. Who do you think is the best girl in today's recap? Comment Yuya amongst us all. And if you like anime recaps, then watch this video here.